December 2025, Bamako, Mali. 3 finance ministers whirled into a conference room and signed a document that could end 80 years of French monetary control over West Africa. No big conference, no CNN, just 3 countries, Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso, quietly flipping the switch on what they are calling cornerstone of Sahel financial sovereignty. And look, while ECOWAS was having conference meetings in Abuja, talking about what a West African currency might look like someday, these 3 countries activated a bank, real money, $895 million, real mandates to build roads and power grids without checking with Paris first. Yeah, the question isn't whether this scares France. The question is why we are all acting surprised. Okay, let me walk you through what went down, because this isn't a South African summit where everyone makes promises and nothing changes. December 11th, 2025, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger launched the Confederal Bank for Investment and Development. Let's just call it BCID-AES because that's easier to see. They put in 500 billion CFA francs, about $895 million to start. So what is this bank supposed to do? Roads, railways, electricity farms, energy projects. But every decision gets made in Bamako, Ouagadougou and Niamey, not Paris, not Washington. The Sahel Tribune called this bank the Act of Birth. Now that's the direct translation from French Acte de Naissance, which actually means birth certificate, of the whole AES economic setup. Now think of it like building a house. You can't just slap the walls and call it done. You need the foundation first, the plumbing, the electrical wiring, all that stuff that nobody sees but everything depends on. So they just poured the foundation. Now, quick context, these 3 countries, they are not exactly democracies. We all know they are ruled by military leaders. Military takeover happened in Mali in 2020, Burkina Faso in 2022 and Niger in 2023. Right after that, ECOWAS hit them with sanctions, threatened to send in troops, called them illegitimate. And these 3 military leaders basically said, alright, we are out. January 28, 2024, they dropped a joint statement saying they are leaving ECOWAS. Their words, not mine. ECOWAS was under the influence of foreign powers and kept hitting them with irrational and unacceptable sanctions. Done by January 2025, ECOWAS officially confirmed it. And that's when the whole monetary thing went from talk to action. Now, most people think this is about 3 countries trying to print their own money, but that misses what's actually going on. This is about something way older. When African countries got independence in the 1960s, they got everything that looked like independence: flags, national anthems, seats at the UN. But 14 of them kept using a currency controlled by France, the CFA franc. It was literally created in 1945 as the franc of French colonies of Africa. Not even subtle, and the way it works is, well, it's kind of genius if you are France, frustrating if you are not. CFA countries deposit 50% of their foreign reserves with the French treasury. In exchange, France guarantees the currency stays locked to the euro at a fixed rate. Look, people who support this system say it brings low inflation, stability, investor confidence, and they are not making it up. Now, the IMF showed that way more countries under the CFA had inflation rates around 2 to 3% recently, while some neighbors were dealing with double digits. But there is another side to this. You can't touch your exchange rate when your economy needs breathing room. You can't print money to build a highway during tough times. You basically can't run your own monetary policy. Now, there is a saying, the hand that holds your purse controls your steps. For 80 years, that hand has been in Paris. Reuters put it pretty well. The whole CFA debate is sovereignty versus expediency. Yes, you get stability, but what you are giving up, and that gets us to why France is watching this so closely. Because Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger aren't just complaining about the CFA anymore. They are actually building an exit. So there is another piece to this puzzle. You can't launch your own currency if your capital is being overrun by insurgents, right? And you definitely can't tell France to back off if French troops are your main reason you are still standing. So before they went after the money system, they changed the security setup. August 14th, 2025, they signed this memorandum: more training, more weapons, joint operations. Western analysts talk about this as security for resources. Russia gives military backup. AES countries give access to gold, uranium, strategic deals. So the math works like this. Russia backs the regime's security. The regime feels confident enough to challenge French control over money. France loses on both fronts: military presence and economic influence. Put yourself in this military leader's position for a second. You came to power promising to deal with the bad guys and bring back sovereignty. French troops didn't stop the attacks. ECOWAS slapped you with sanctions instead of offering help. Then Russia shows up. No lectures about democracy, just weapons, training and political cover at the UN. What will you do? So now you've got this weird situation developing. While the AES is setting up BCID and planning their Sahel currency, ECOWAS is trying to do their own thing. December 2025, ECOWAS holds a big summit in Abuja. They are still pushing for the ECO, this single West African currency that is supposed to replace the CFA franc and everyone's national currencies. They even made a whole presidential task force to speed things up. Small problem though, they just lost 3 members. So West Africa is basically running 2 separate currency experiments at the same time. On one side, you have ECOWAS, slow rules based, backed by the IMF and Western institutions. On the other side, you have AES, fast politically driven, leaning on Russia and maybe BRICS down the line. And nobody really knows which approach traders are going to trust when the dust settles. Because you can write all the policy papers in Abuja and Bamako, but the woman selling fabric across the Niger-Benin border, she needs her money to mean the same thing tomorrow as it does today. Now, remittance matter a lot here. Mali alone saw $1.23 billion in remittance in just 2023. If this new AES currency drops 20% against the dollar, that $1.2 billion doesn't go as far. Less food, less medicine, fewer school fees covered. Now, sovereignty sounds amazing, but inflation destroys people's lives. Okay, this part is actually pretty interesting. If you go to Facebook or TikTok right now, you will see posts saying the new Sahel currency is here. January 1st, 2026. It's happening. People are celebrating like it's already launched. Memes everywhere. Finally done with France. Except there is no currency yet. Like physically, it doesn't exist. AFP fact checkers looked into it. The bank is real. The commitments real. But the actual money not printed. But what's wild is that the idea of monetary independence has already taken over. Young Sahelians have already moved in mentally. They are done with the CFA in their heads. Even if technical stuff takes years to figure out, the psychological break happened the moment the junta said they are doing this. And I think that's what's actually making France nervous. Not whether the currency will work mechanically, but that an entire generation doesn't see French institutions as legitimate anymore. Look, we should talk about the risk because this could absolutely blow up. Launching the currency is tough under normal circumstances. Doing it in 3 of the most unstable countries in West Africa, that's a different level. The inflation risk is real. Without that Euro peg and French guarantee, investors might bail. If the currency tanks, regular people pay the price. It could end up with a black market economy and debt. A lot of these countries owe money in CFA or euros. If the new currency weakens, paying back those debts becomes way more expensive. There is this economist, Gaye, who was quoted when they launched BCID. He called it a political act of sovereignty. But then he said, this only works if you get your taxes harmonized, your budgets disciplined, your trade balanced. In other words, you can't just declare sovereignty and expect everything to work out. So where does this leave us? If the AES actually pulls this off, launches the stable currency, funds real infrastructure through their bank, avoids economic disaster, it sets a precedent. Other countries start wondering, if they can leave the CFA, why can't we? The African Continental Free Trade Area is trying to get 54 countries trading smoothly. Multiple currencies make that complicated. But a successful AES experiment might inspire other regions to try something similar. Or if it crashes, hyperinflation, people losing their savings, economic chaos, it becomes the example everyone points to when they say, this is why you don't mess with tested systems. Either way, West Africa's integration just got way more complicated. ECOWAS wants the ECO, AES wants their own path, and the rest of the continent's watching to see which one actually works. So what nobody's actually saying is this isn't the Sahel versus France. It's whether African countries can control their most basic economic tool, which is actually money without needing permission from their former colonizers. The CFA debate is happening because young Africans stop waiting for reforms that never came. They are building alternatives, sometimes messy, sometimes risky, but theirs, and that's the real shift. You see, the question has shifted from, will France allow this, to, can we build something that works, and are we willing to take the risk? Whether the AES currency succeeds or crashes, the fact that they are trying already changes the conversation. And that's the thing about sovereignty. Sometimes fighting for it matters more than getting it perfect the first time. The Sahel just reminded us independence wasn't a moment. It's a process, and it's nowhere near finished. I'm Hassan Wedris. You're watching Africa Today, and this is The Strategic Lens. If you have not yet joined the membership, please do. I don't know what you're waiting for. But a shout out to our members. You made this possible. Thank you. See you in my next video. Bye.